Welcome to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we are decoding the ultimate superpower race. It's a look at three monumental nations, but really only one throne. We're talking about the United States, China, and India. We're going to break down exactly what's happening right now, digging into the data to see where true global power actually lies. Let's get right into it. To understand where we're going, we really have to look at where we started. Picture this for a second. It's 1991. The Indian government is facing a massive economic crisis, and the nation is bankrupt. And I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean literally bankrupt. The situation was so dire that the government had to secretly load 47 tons of physical gold onto airplanes, fly it all the way to London, and pledge it as collateral just to pay its basic international bills. Fast forward to today, and wow, the contrast is absolutely dramatic. The very same nation that was flying out gold just to keep the lights on, it's now the world's fifth largest economy and the most populous nation on Earth. And almost every single global power is currently racing to become its strategic partner. The shift in momentum here is just historic. Okay, so let's dive into this. How did this incredible transformation actually happen? And maybe more importantly, is India actually ready to lead the world? Or are we kind of getting ahead of ourselves here? Well, to answer that, we need to measure these nations across a few critical battlegrounds to see who's really winning the race for the superpower throne. Here's our roadmap for the explainer. We're going to measure these nations across 5 specific pillars: the economic battle, the demographic weapon, the innovation race, the geopolitical masterstroke, and finally, a much-needed reality check. All right, pillar number 1, the economy battle, because let's face it, money is still a primary measure of power. At the end of the day, money is the ultimate metric of global influence, and the sheer scale of the top 2 economies is massive. The United States is sitting at a staggering $29 trillion, with China in a solid second place at $18 trillion. India is currently in the 5th place spot at $3.9 trillion, so the gap between 1st and 5th is still enormous. But look, raw GDP doesn't tell the whole story, right? The USA's biggest underlying strength is that the US dollar literally powers 88% of all global trade. That is a superpower in and of itself. However, they're carrying $34 trillion in national debt alongside a hollowed-out manufacturing base. Now, China is the world's factory floor. They manufacture 28% of all goods on Earth, but their momentum is slowing down, largely due to the Evergrande real estate fallout and youth unemployment sitting above 20%. And then there's India. While they might have the smallest GDP of the 3 right now, they are growing at a blistering 7% per year. At this rate, they're projected to be the 3rd largest economy by 2030. And when you look at how that 7% growth is happening, you find some really remarkable data points. This one is absolutely mind-blowing. India's UPI payment system is now processing more digital transactions than Visa and MasterCard combined. It's this massive leapfrog in digital infrastructure that's completely fueling their domestic economy, entirely bypassing the traditional credit card models that we rely on every single day in the West. So the crucial point is perfectly captured in this summary from the source material. The USA built the 20th century. China built the factory floor. India is building the 21st century's digital backbone. That fundamentally shifts how we need to look at the future of global commerce. Moving on to pillar number 2, the demographic weapon. It's about way more than just mere population numbers. Back in 2023, India officially surpassed China to become the world's most populous nation. But sheer numbers alone don't equal actual power. It's all about how old those people are. Now, what's really interesting here is the contrast. Let this sink in. The median age in America is 38. In China, it's 39. In India, the median age is just 28. India officially has the youngest large workforce on Earth. When we look at where these trajectories are heading, the strategic advantage becomes crystal clear. By 2030, India will add 200 million working-age people to its economy, pumping out 1.5 million engineers every single year. You know, it's really no coincidence that the tech you use every day, Google, Microsoft, IBM, Adobe, they're all led by CEOs of Indian origin. Contrast that with China, whose workforce is actively shrinking right now due to its historical one-child policy, while the US relies heavily on immigration just to maintain its growth. I think this quote decisively caps off this entire demographic section. China's aging crisis is a slow-moving catastrophe. India's youth bulge is a slow-moving rocket. A young, massive, highly educated workforce is a long-term strategic advantage that you just cannot build overnight. Okay, pillar number 3, the innovation race. Silicon Valley, BYD, and ISRO. An economy and a workforce are obviously only as powerful as the technology they control, which creates a fierce 3-way battle.
Objectively speaking, the US remains unmatched, with Silicon Valley, Nvidia, and OpenAI leading the pack. China is genuinely impressive with giants like Huawei and BYD, but Western export bans are quietly putting the brakes on Beijing's AI ambitions. And then you have India, aggressively shifting from being the world's back office to a front-end innovation hub. I mean, they just landed the Chandrayaan-3 on the moon's south pole, and their space agency launches satellites for 34 different countries at an absolute fraction of what it costs NASA.
To concisely summarize the dynamics of this three-way innovation race we just laid out, the USA invents, China manufactures, India is learning to do both at Indian prices. The ability to deliver cutting-edge technology so highly cost-effectively is totally disrupting the traditional global tech hierarchy. Pillar number 4, the geopolitical masterstroke. This is a highly sophisticated balancing act. This is where India plays a diplomatic game unlike anybody else. It's full of fascinating, apparent contradictions. On one hand, India is in the Quad alliance with the US, largely to counter China. Yet, simultaneously, they sit right next to China and Russia in BRICS. While the West heavily sanctioned Russia over Ukraine, India quietly bought discounted Russian oil, refined it, and sold the products back to Europe at a profit. Talk about geopolitical arbitrage, right? And get this, they've had tense border conflicts with China since 2020, yet they still do $136 billion in annual trade with them. Every major power is aggressively competing to secure India as a partner. This multi-partner, non-aligned strategy is incredibly potent. As the source material beautifully notes, India is the only nation on Earth that sits at every table and owes a favor to none. It's literally a masterclass in maximizing national interest in a deeply fractured world. And finally, pillar number 5, the reality check. Because honestly, they are not a superpower just yet. To be totally objective here, we must be honest about where India actually stands today. And it anchors on one staggering number, 400 million. That is the number of people in India who still live without a reliable income. Despite all the rapid economic growth, massive segments of the population have simply not yet reached true economic stability. When we objectively look at the roadblocks, the list is pretty significant. While the major cities are booming, the infrastructure gaps outside of those urban centers, they're going to require decades of sustained work to fix. Furthermore, there are ongoing, deeply rooted governance issues and serious corruption challenges that create heavy friction on their continued rise. These are real, tangible hurdles that absolutely cannot be ignored. Yet, despite these very real challenges, the upward trajectory remains undeniable. And what makes this trajectory unique is the system actually driving it. Unlike China's rapid, state-controlled rise in the 1990s, which can essentially be switched off or redirected by one man in one room, India's growth is powered by a massive, sprawling, often messy democracy. It's just a completely different mechanism for building a superpower. So we have to ask ourselves, looking ahead to 2047, which will mark India's 100th year of independence, given the scale of their economy, the explosion of their youth, their technological leaps, and their masterclass in geopolitics, will they overcome those hurdles to become the world's #1 economy? What do you think the global power structure is going to look like? Think about it, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next explainer as we continue to decode the biggest power shifts in the world. Catch you next time.